On the night of the 19th of September 1961, Betty and Barney Hill, an American couple from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, were driving home from a holiday at Niagara Falls, travelling along the silent American countryside in the dead of night, just south of Lancaster on US Route 3. The journey was nothing out of the ordinary. The couple chatted about their time away and were likely eager to return home after what must have been a tiring trip. But a truly unthinkable, earth-shattering experience would uproot the entire course of their lives just moments later. Looking skyward, Betty noticed what looked like a single bright point of light slowly moving across the sky from just below their view of the moon, moving slowly up and westward. At first, she exclaimed to her husband with joy that she had seen a shooting star. Except, shooting stars don't move up, do they? As Barney drove on, Betty continued to make observations about this strange spot of light in the night sky, and the couple stopped to observe it. What they saw, and what would subsequently happen to them, would change the global state of UFO encounters forever, and to this day, what they saw remains a topic of intriguing debate. Tonight, we'll be looking into this harrowing case for ourselves. I can assure you now, this is not the ambiguous run-of-the-mill UFO story that the internet is so sorely saturated with these days, far from it. Join us as we embark on one of the most bizarre paranormal cases the world has ever seen. This is the Betty and Barney Hill incident. Welcome to Campfire Archives. So Niall, generally speaking, what do you know about UFOs and UFO abductions so far?
To be honest, quite little. I won't lie, the idea of UFO abductions has never really piqued my interest. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that everybody who has necessarily claims to have been abducted or claims to have seen a UFO isn't telling the truth. We've obviously had a lot of disclosures recently from the American government which shows that this could well be a reality we live in. But the abduction stories always feel, without sounding harsh, a little bit fanciful for me. I'm like, I can't shake the idea of perhaps a bit of attention seeking, because if you're telling that story of your abduction, you're happy to speak on something quite personal that's happened to you. There's going to be a degree of notoriety that comes with that within your community. I just can't shake the fact attention seeking might play a part in it, Tom. Maybe I'm being a bit unfair there. I don't know.
It's hard not to associate it with the same people you associate with Bigfoot sightings, the whole rednecks, beer bellies, moonshine.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Part of me sometimes wonders, are these people just trying to make their lives a little bit more interesting, if you know what I mean?
Well, as we'll soon see, Betty and Barney weren't the kind of people you typically associate with UFO encounters. Barney was a World War II veteran who had found work as a postman following the war, and Betty was a social worker. Both of them were civil rights activists, and they were an interracial couple at a point in US history when that was particularly uncommon. Still, these good-natured, unassuming, everyday citizens of New Hampshire vehemently insisted that they saw what they did on that chilly September night in the countryside. When the couple stopped to observe the lights in the sky through binoculars, Barney noticed it too. At first, he believed he was looking at a commercial airliner, but when the object rapidly began to descend towards them, he changed his mind. Betty's mind was soon flooded with thoughts of flying saucers, of which her sister claimed to have seen years prior, which may be something of a red flag, but we'll come to that later. Unnerved, the couple hopped back in their car and continued on the route home. Barney intentionally drove slowly, and the couple continued to observe the object in the sky as they went. It was now flashing in a bright, multicoloured display, and as they passed by the Old Man of the Mountain, a rock formation in the shape of a human head, Betty got a feel for its size. She estimated that the craft would have been at least 18 metres across, and that it appeared to be rotating. A few miles later, and Barney was forced to bring his car to a halt. The disc-shaped craft continued to descend to the point where it hovered just 30 metres above their car, blocking almost their entire view upward. Observing the craft with binoculars once more, Barney could now make out windows around its edges, and noted what he described as 8 to 11 humanoid figures inside. Supposedly they were wearing black uniforms and black caps. All of them were peering at him, some of them appeared to be laughing. All of these beings but one moved deeper within the craft to a panel on the wall, whilst one remaining figure continued to stare. Barney didn't know how he could understand it, but the humanoids seemed to be telling him to stay where he was and keep looking. Terrified, he bolted back inside the car and sped away. As they did so, however, both witnesses heard a droning, siren-like beep and slowly began to lose consciousness. So what are you thinking so far? What would you do in this situation?
I think if I was genuinely presented with that, I think I'd probably do exactly what Barney did, which gives it a bit of credence to me. If there's some kind of object which is 18 meters across, enormous, and can basically blot out the sky for you, and is tracking you, part of me thinks, I don't think I'd speed off because I'd almost be worried about antagonising it. And at that point, my head would be going to something otherworldly, and I would think, well, this thing has powers and abilities way beyond my knowledge, so am I going to try and outrun it? Probably not. I'm probably, yeah, I think I would sit tight and just see what on earth was going on and what it wanted.
Yeah, I feel like if you can see something from 30 meters away and you're very confident that it's not a plane, that would probably be a good sign to run away. And we've also got the issue here with Betty instantly thinking of flying saucers. Now, that's because her sister claimed to have seen one years prior. Now, we might think at first that that could be unreliable. Now, Betty might be an unreliable witness. If she's predisposed to thinking of these things, just like we saw in the Sandown Clown case, she might have been planting these ideas in her own head. I do want to preface that by just saying that what's about to happen in this story gets a lot stranger, and I think we can possibly put that to one side. So without further ado, let's dive back into the story. So this was only the beginning. What had started as an eerie, dreamlike encounter on the roads of New Hampshire descended into a waking horror story as the Hills woke up just outside of Concord. Now that's around 35 miles from where they had first encountered the craft. Now they'd first noticed the craft at around 10:30 p.m, but by the time they reached home, the sun was beginning to rise. Hours of unaccounted time had passed, with no explanation. They started feeling eerie impulses and sensations that weren't there before. For a reason she couldn't explain, Betty was adamant that their luggage should be placed by the back door of the house, and Barney noticed that the leather strap of his binoculars had been torn, although he had no recollection of tearing it. Moreover, both of the couple's watches would permanently break following the encounter. Betty's dress was torn, and Barney's shoes had been scuffed and scraped. Most eerily, though, Betty noted a strange pink powder on her dress, which blew away when she hung it on the clothesline. The University of Cincinnati actually conducted an analysis of Betty's dress. Researchers noted that the pink is strange in relationship to its inorganic elemental compound and its high inorganic hydrocarbons.
Wow.
They also attempted to recreate the pink effect on the dress, exposing it to ultraviolet light and various chemicals, but nothing they tried could replicate it. The Hills then attempted to piece together what they thought had happened. They had no memory of anything occurring post hearing the beeping noise, and so after showering and sleeping, decided to examine their vehicle. A series of shiny circles were present along the metalwork of the car that had not been there before, and their compass would permanently go haywire when moved closely along the vehicle's exterior. 10 days passed, and still neither witness had a clue where to begin. That is when Betty's dreams started, across the course of 5 nights. She dreamt that the couple were driving along a road at night and encountered a roadblock before being ambushed by strange figures from the hillsides. At this point in the dream, she lost consciousness, and when she regained it, was being forced to walk through a forest in the dead of night with 2 small, nearly human men either side of her, with grey skin and deep dark eyes. Barney was walking behind her in a trance-like state, unresponsive. The men then took Dream Betty and Barney back to their car, and they watched as a similar craft flew away into the night sky. So a lot to take in there. Any more thoughts?
Yeah, there's a ton to unpack. Firstly, I won't lie, when Barney's saying he can see little men in black uniforms working on control panels, laughing at him, I started to think, I don't know, would another worldly craft like this have windows that you could so clearly see? How is he able to identify what laughing looks like if we're going with the thread that this is an alien craft, for example? But it does get more interesting when you talk about the pink compound on a dress. So am I right in thinking it's almost a little bit otherworldly, is what they're getting at from its composition?
So the scientists from the University of Cincinnati focused in on the presence of inorganic hydrocarbons. So something synthetic, something that wasn't natural.
Not the kind of thing you would expect Betty to have on a dress.
No, absolutely not.
After a car journey. And then the other thing that weirdly stood out to me, I mean, the dreams are one thing. Obviously, you know, everyone can have dreams that are bizarre and really unusual. The luggage I find really odd, Tom. I find it ever so slightly unnerving that she has this want to keep the luggage by the back door. That almost creeps me out a little bit, and I can't really put my finger on why.
It's quite a weird detail, and unfortunately one that isn't really addressed again. It's part of, essentially, the couple have all these odd, strange experiences. So for some reason as well, Barney felt really compelled to go into the shower and check his genitals straight away.
I mean,
But you would, wouldn't you?
poor Barney. If we believe them, what has gone on to poor Barney here?
Seems to have been thoroughly fiddled with. So this case is actually about to get so much weirder. So the Hills would be interviewed extensively once they had come forward regarding their encounter, and in the November of 1961, they met with the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, or NICAP. Despite the intense questioning, the Hills genuinely seemed to have no recollection of any of the lost time, nor did they have any explanation for what had happened to them on the road that night. NICAP interviewers suggest that hypnosis might assist them in remembering what happened, and although the couple were apprehensive, they agreed. Barney soon underwent hypnosis sessions with Dr. Benjamin Simon, and a few revelations came to light, so we'll just list through these. Barney admitted under hypnosis that the strap of his binoculars had broken when he ran back to the car. He also recalled being compelled to pull off the road after he heard the beeping noise, and that's when he saw 6 men standing by the side of his vehicle. Betty and Barney's hypnotic recollections of the men they encountered were eerily similar. Barney recalled that the beings told him to close his eyes, and that their eyes were terrifying to look at. He said that he felt like their eyes were being pushed into his own. Betty recalled hearing a language she'd never heard before when the men approached the car. Betty's account of what happened under hypnosis was similar to what she had seen in her dream, with only a few minor differences. Most importantly, Betty actually recalled being up inside the craft, witnessing magnificent alien technology unlike anything she'd seen on Earth. On board, she and Barney were subject to medical examinations and communicated with the beings on board. They showed great interest in Barney's dentures. So while under hypnosis, Betty managed to recall one of the most mind-blowing pieces of evidence we see in this case. The beings showed Betty a star map, which the beings on board reportedly used to navigate routes between stars and solar systems. Betty was able to draw this star map under hypnosis, and the end result shows 2 large home stars connected to smaller ones. Betty's drawing is available online today. We urge you to search it up. And although it looks a little messy, the positioning of the stars and the lines between them look very intentional. In 1974, however, astronomer Marjorie Fish analysed Betty's drawings of the map, wondering if she could draw any conclusions about where the craft might have come from. She created a 3D model of nearby sun-like stars similar to our own, using thread and beads, and after analysing thousands of possibilities, managed to find a near enough exact match to Betty's drawing from the perspective of the Zeta Reticuli star system. And I'll just show you this now, Niall. Have a look at that.
I mean, Tom, it's absolutely incredible. This is one of those stories where the more you tell me, the more interesting it gets. And this feels like the mic drop moment. For those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, I implore you to do a quick Google search and have a look at this. It effectively looks like, Tom, from memory, she's completely mapped this area of the solar system. The accuracy on it is absolutely astonishing. Effectively, what you have are all these individual, I don't know, Tom, are they stars or planets? And then she's got these almost like space lanes in between them that she's mapped out. If I had days to rehearse this map, I don't think I could produce as accurate a rendition as Betty has there. And this is a star system that's where, sorry, is this known to us at this time, this star system exists?
It was known at the time, yeah. So Marjorie Fish, the astronomer, she's gone through and she's analysed that drawing from every possible perspective that she could find that would make sense. And this is the one that she's landed on. This is one that she's found that fits the bill.
So Betty never mentioned this star system. This is an astronomer who's said, actually, this looks just like this particular system then.
She didn't say it by name. All she did was essentially just draw it under hypnosis.
That's wild, Tom. That's absolutely wild.
It's absolutely astounding. It's a really, really impressive piece of evidence, if we can call it evidence. I'd urge you all to look it up. It's a fantastic, creepy bit of the story. So all Dr. Simon could conclude was that the couple had experienced a, quote, singular psychological aberration. The story was subsequently publicised to great extent, but the Hills reportedly had no desire to have gained such publicity. Now, we'll have a look at that later. But first of all, let's go into a little bit of evidence. So in terms of the evidence that supports this case, so we don't have any explanation for the circles that Betty and Barney found on the car, the broken watches, the pink powder on the dress, the torn clothes, or the compass behaviour. The star map is scarily similar to the real thing, of course. Hours of time are still missing from the experience, and both provided a very similar account under hypnosis. Anything to add to that you think would support the story?
I think it's a little bit odd for them to comment on details like dentures and how these beings were interested in them. If you are making it up, it's not that fanciful, it's not that fantastical. I don't know why you'd go with that. It's also, let's be honest, a bit embarrassing for poor Barney to admit, yeah, I immediately went and checked my genitals afterwards, because this is what, in the 50s, the 60s?
This is September 1961.
Yeah, so we're a lot more conservative back then. Talking about going and checking your genitals isn't really the done thing, is it? If you don't want to be publicly ostracised, obviously. What was Betty's job?
So Betty was a social worker, and she was also an amateur hobbyist astronomer.
Okay.
So that could put a bit of perspective into things there.
That's a touch interesting. Although there is a bit of a temptation to immediately be like, oh, well, she was an amateur astronomer. She obviously knows what this star system looks like. She's just drawn it because she's seen it or what have you. I guess an amateur astronomer in the 60s, though, isn't someone who has access to internet. It's probably just someone who has access to a telescope.
Pretty much. And she supposedly drew this star map under hypnosis as well.
There you go. Is a telescope that a social worker in the 60s going to be anywhere powerful enough, firstly, to see this star system, secondly, to be able to map it in the way she did? Honestly, I encourage you so much to look at this picture. Unless someone had already drawn me that star map and given it to me to rehearse, there's no way I could reproduce. You can't reproduce that just from looking at the night sky, whether she's an amateur astronomer or not, in my opinion, Tom.
Every little part of that picture looks so intentional, and it's like she really, really confidently drew. Like even the thickness of the lines, it's really, really something. Now, unsurprisingly, and I'm sure you're thinking about this at home as well, there is a lot of evidence that might not support this case. So Marjorie Fish, who discovered the comparison between Betty's star map and the real thing, she eventually rejected her own hypothesis regarding the star map, as some of the stars were shown to be further away than previously thought. I'm not sure how much pressure she came under from other scientists there too, but even so, you've got to admit it's a ridiculously striking resemblance.
I'm not having it for a minute, Tom. Betty drew this under hypnosis. She's not using a compass. She's not using rulers while she's doing this. If it's slightly off, slightly inaccurate, I think that's fair enough. Again, look at the image. It is scary how closely accurate it is. Yeah, some of the lines don't marry up absolutely perfectly, but there is no doubt in my mind, if you look at Betty's picture, what she was trying to draw. It's clear as day. And I think saying that it could have been something else and that some of these lines aren't necessarily absolutely perfect, it just doesn't wash with me. And again, I agree, unfortunately, there's probably an element of pressure from her peers to go back on this theory.
I agree, absolutely. I mean, anything that can potentially be considered a pseudoscience, I feel like you've got a very vehement pushback on any of that. And if something is not 100% confirmable, then people are naturally going to try and find a way of confirming it.
Absolutely.
You do have to admit it is an incredible coincidence, if we can call it a coincidence. And just, I mean, can we call it a coincidence? Maybe we can't.
With all the other little tidbits of evidence, I think it's tough to call it a coincidence. The pink on the dress, the way they felt carries the least weight to me, obviously, but the rings on the car, it's such a shame we didn't get more information on that and that wasn't investigated more thoroughly. But even things like the watches breaking and the compass going haywire, there's all these little threads of info that to me feed into this and give it more credibility.
Yeah, if it is a hoax, it's an incredibly well thought out hoax, especially for the 1960s.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, more evidence that may not support this story. So, Dr. Benjamin Simon, the hypnotist, he later claimed that the experience was anxiety and stress induced. He claimed that because the TV show The Outer Limits, a sci-fi show surrounding aliens, had been doing the rounds at the time, that these ideas were planted in their heads. That, combined with the stress of being an interracial couple in 1960s America, may also have got to them. But do you think that could really have such a big impact?
I mean,
I've no doubt that they experienced particularly horrific racism in the 1960s being an interracial couple, but would the stress of that experience have really created this colossal story?
yeah, it's a really good point. And you're absolutely right. They would have 100% experienced a lot of horrendous racism. It almost feels like we're taking away their autonomy, though, by saying this and saying, oh, yeah, well, this couple are interracial, they experience a lot of stress, therefore they have no idea of what reality actually is. I don't buy it for a minute. This feels like such a weak reach by this scientist to try and kibosh what they've experienced. And I'm not saying I believe it, Tom, but this as a way of explaining it doesn't wash with me for a minute. Are we saying then that black people or individuals who are more likely to experience segregation and racism throughout their lives are more likely to encounter aliens? Did black people in South Africa during apartheid have more encounters with UFOs or ghosts than non-black people? It just makes zero sense to me. I think it's a joke of an explanation almost. And yeah, I think it's just a classic example of someone who doesn't believe in this kind of thing reaching for anything and everything to try and come up with some kind of theory and explanation for it that they consider to be scientific. And like I say, I'm not saying that Betty and Barney Hill did get abducted, but what I am saying is that I don't buy that as an explanation.
And I've got to agree with that. I can't help but think that it sounds quite condescending to just bring race into it when, if somebody's had a genuinely terrifying, traumatic encounter with something they can't explain, it's kind of just saying, well, yeah, shut up.
Great way of putting it. And we probably wouldn't get that same opinion nowadays. No, it's probably a product of its time, and it's probably laden with racism a little bit itself, maybe.
Definitely does feel that way. Another thing that we could potentially look at is the Hills' personalities. And this has again been used as evidence against the case, and some of it I think could fly, other bits not so much. So people comment on Barney's high blood pressure. He had high blood pressure following, I believe, his stint in the war. He was in the military before. I don't see how high blood pressure can bring about such a colossal hallucination or an experience that you share with somebody else.
Again, it just feels like everyone is clutching at straws here to try and explain this away. I've never heard of that link before. The link between experiencing the paranormal and high blood pressure.
Me neither. It feels like a very, very loose connection. Looking at Betty, she was supposedly described as being very hyperneurotic in her work and in her life prior to this encounter. She also developed mental illness after her encounter, which many people do, and would reportedly tell everyone that everything in the sky was a UFO. She actually became something of a mini celebrity in the UFO world after this happened. And part of me is thinking, yeah, well, naturally you probably would. This is like the UFO case. As to whether or not we can use it as evidence against her having had the initial encounter, I don't know. I think, like, if she's gone on to see craft after craft after craft in the sky, then maybe that's a symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. If she is mentally ill, then...
Yeah, 100%. I do not hold anything against her for seeing lights in the sky going forward and assuming it's a UFO. If you've had an experience like that, every satellite, every commercial airliner, you're going to see it, and it's going to take you right back, isn't it? Like you say, like PTSD almost. I don't think we can hold it against her and say that this was part of the cause of it, because it sounds like, yeah, she was neurotic, but that's not a mental illness. It doesn't sound like she had any issues like this before the encounter. And again, if anything, maybe it just gives it some more credence, that it shows how affected she was by it.
A couple of maybe more credible pieces of evidence against the story are that some, not all, some of Betty's hypnosis responses were made after hearing Barney's tapes. That's an interesting one. You could maybe then say that some of the elements of the story might have been fabricated, but the fact that it was some of them and not the whole thing, that makes me think that it's maybe there is some credence to the story. And you can actually listen to the hypnosis tapes online if you're interested as well.
Yeah, just because she heard them, like we say, doesn't mean she's falsified any of it. Their stories were still corroborated from the sounds of it. Their stories were still corroborated throughout from the sounds of it. And also, I go back to that star map, Tom. It's such compelling evidence for me. You can corroborate all you want. How would they have known that's what it would look like? And how would she be able to draw it like that freehand?
It all comes back to that, doesn't it? And Barney had no knowledge of the star map.
I feel a bit bad for Barney in this tale, because it sounds like Betty's been revealed the mysteries and secrets of the universe, while poor Barney's just been probed and had
pretty much
beans play with his genitals. Or maybe he's the lucky one, actually.
I don't know. I feel like I'd rather see the secrets of the universe than have them.
Each to their own, then. Each to their own, Tom.
Final piece of evidence against is that, I know we often say that in these stories, people who aren't looking for fame and fortune are a lot more credible. Betty and Barney did actually write a book alongside Dr. Simon entitled The Interrupted Journey about the case, and it was a quick success. How much Betty and Barney had in the planning and release of that book, I'm not too sure, but it was written alongside Simon. Maybe Simon was trying to get a little boost to his career. Who can tell?
I won't lie, that does hurt it slightly for me, but at the same time, if I imagine this happening to me and a publisher approaches me, like we say, we have no idea how involved they were in this, but a publisher approaches me, promises me $100,000 if I tell my story, am I going to turn that down? Probably not, Tom.
Yeah, I guess at that point, your encounter has happened a while ago, and you've been advised to get hypnosis from the NICAP. You've not voluntarily sought out hypnosis and therefore sought out the man who's going to help you write a book.
And my story's out there. People are telling it, so I may as well be the one to make some money off it.
Absolutely. So that brings us to the end of the tale. So after the encounter, Betty and Barney went back to their normal lives, or as normal as they could get. Barney sadly would pass away of a brain hemorrhage in 1969 at the age of 46, while Betty quickly took off to semi-stardom in the UFO community, as we mentioned briefly. She died in 2004 at the age of 85 from cancer, and she never remarried. The case has become extremely culturally significant when it comes to UFOs in TV, film, books, and art. It was one of the first ones to ever be publicized on a large scale. And it is, as far as UFO stories and abductions go, it's believable. I think it's one of the more intriguing ones, and I can understand why somebody would confidently believe that this happened with all the evidence that we have.
It's a really good one, Tom. I think my issue with UFO abductions is they are 10 a penny, and they all follow a fairly similar thread. This is great because it just has that little bit more evidence. The star map, the pink on the dress that was analysed by an external organisation, the hypnosis, the rings on the car. It just has a little bit more weight to it in my eyes, and a really, really interesting case, I think.
Well, thank you so much for listening as always. Please do let us know what you think about this case in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Any ideas, any theories that you might have, and they might be covered on the next case update episode. Don't forget, you can reach us at hello.campfirearchives@gmail.com, or you can reach out and send us a message or follow us on Instagram at campfire_archives. If you'd like to submit a story or just say hello, please do. We'd love to hear from you. I've been Tom. This has been Niall, and we'll see you in the next episode.